Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
I think for me, ultimately, it's about capturing memories. It's about being in the moment, but then capturing it with a photo so that I can go back, I can recall all of those things. I think, people, viewing photography, viewing pictures, that helps me too, kind of, get out of my mind and into my heart a little bit when I see pictures of skies or neon lights and that sort of thing. But as far as taking photography myself, it's really about remembering moments so that I can go back and I can scroll through my phone and just kind of remember in those times, life is good. There's so many times we get, stuck in the chaos of everything and everything's negative, and then scrolling through those pictures that I chose to take and remember, oh yeah, I forgot we got to do that. And I love those people and all of that. So it really is a way for me capturing the good stuff in life.
Great. Steve Fredlund, this is take 2. So thank you for trying again.
Yeah.
To join me on the podcast.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I was so disappointed that it just didn't work out technologically the first time. Like, that was going to be such a good conversation. So happy that you fought through, and here we are.
Okay, great. Now, I like to situate. So first of all, I love your energy because you do radiate optimism and positivity. And the essence of the podcast is, what if life really is a gift? How do we make every second count? Which is an optimistic, naive, ridiculous question. But maybe you have to be kind of naive and ridiculous to be optimistic and be positive. So you really radiate goodness.
Well, thank you. It's your way of saying that I'm really naive. I accept that. That's okay.
No, touche, but not quite. Now look, so just so that people understand, okay, I'm in Hong Kong. I'm based in Hong Kong. Where are you based?
I'm in the United States. I'm in a state called Minnesota, which is in the central northern part of the country. So we border Canada, kind of right in the middle there.
I can't remember if I said this last time, but like there's something in the water because I've had like 5 guests from Minnesota on the podcast. I don't understand. What is going on with you people?
I don't know. Maybe we're stuck here in the Midwest in the frozen tundra of 6 months of winter, and so talking to somebody in Hong Kong just seems exotic. It seems fun. I don't know what it is, but I think I mean, the culture of the people, I mean, it's sort of stereotypical, but it's pretty true. I mean, a lot of nice people, a lot of friendly people, a lot of people that will give you the time of day. If you have questions or if you want to have a conversation, most of us are very amenable to that because we really enjoy it. So maybe that's all it is.
On my side, it's fascinating because I don't quite get it. Like there are a lot of authors and a lot of really nice people from Minnesota.
Yeah. I mean, there's the thing around here, Minnesota nice is sort of a saying, and it's kind of true. I mean, there's like everywhere, there's some people that are terrible, but
right.
But in all, the culture of it is very nice. And I think a lot of that maybe stems from a lot of us live in the same towns that we grew up in. My wife and I are 5th generation in the same small town that we grew up in. Our kids are 6th. It's just, good or bad. Some people are like, that sounds terrible. But, you kind of have this shared history with everybody. You know everybody's family. You know their parents. You know their kids. Your teachers were your kids' teachers. And so I don't know if there's something about the community element that I've only seen, in the Midwest, or I've also seen it when I've traveled, to like third world countries where it's kind of this community because everybody's doing everything together. So maybe that's part of it.
Amazing. Okay, so the last time when we tried to record, I think we actually got as far as me saying, okay, well, let's look at the first photo. And you don't remember what you sent me. And that is common. That happens all the time. And then I'd started to describe what it was because it was hilarious. It was amazing. Okay, so, well, not hilarious. I'm not laughing at you, but it was just, okay.
Right. Yeah. Oh, it is.
It's a book cover that says, do the unright thing, where unright, well, do the and thing is in like sans serif font in full caps. Unright is like handwritten in this bright yellow. And it says memoir of a people pleaser, which says a lot right away. And is that a photo of you? Because I didn't get that answer.
It is. Yeah, that's me. And I believe in second grade. It's either my school photo from second grade or third grade, just as a basically that I love that picture because it describes me. It's a scared kid. Like, you can just kind of see the tremors in my chin and, going to take the school photo. And I was so scared at school anyway. I was a shy, timid kid and scared. I was really small. And then going to take the school photo was just kind of like, oh no, now people are looking at me. And so that kind of captures it. But, I'm fighting back all of my emotions because I'm a people pleaser. So I know I'm supposed to smile, I'm supposed to do the right thing. And so hopefully that captures that piece of it.
Okay. So I love these conversations because first of all, I love your energy. One, in the photo, you have this perfect, what looks like, you're very fine kind of brown hair that's very nicely combed. You have square brown plastic glasses.
Yeah.
You're wearing this really fly sort of red and white shirt. It's very badass. You're looking, I wouldn't think scared. I would think kind of looking, you could, listen, a person reading into it could be maybe timid, but could be smug, could be judgmental.
Yeah.
And how old were you? You're young.
Yeah. 7 or 8, I think. 8 years old, maybe.
Yeah. Cute brown eyes, cute little face. Memoir of a people pleaser. So obviously you've written a book. Do the unright thing.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, and that's the funny part about that photo is, I know myself, so I recognize the face. But it's funny when people see that photo, a lot of times, at least here in the Midwest, they just go, "That's from the '70s, isn't it? 1970s." I'm like, "Yeah, it is," because they recognize. You say it's that fly shirt, but back in the day, that was the shirt that all the rural kids had because it was, I suppose, cheap at some discount store, and the cut, the haircut was the bowl, my mom with the bowl and the scissors, and so yeah.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Okay, so because I'm bringing into this my own baggage, my own reading, my own projection, right? Memoir of a people pleaser. I am a people pleaser. I associate it to being a middle child, because in my sort of psyche, it's like I go to sort of make sure everybody's okay. I'm like, are you eating enough? Are you warm enough? Are you taking I kind of do want people to feel good. Right? Now, how do you express this? Like, what does that mean in your world?
Yeah, for me, it's not even so much as a caregiver. I mean, it comes off, I think, as a caregiver sort of piece, but it's really what I realized through the whole writing of the thing is I've always been a people pleaser, but ultimately what it is I have this addiction to external validation, which I think a lot of other people do in the sense of I found my identity in that over the years. So, if somebody needs something or if I initiate asking somebody for something, and if I meet the need, right, if they have some need that I meet, then they say, hey, thank you so much. And I think what happened in my brain is when they say, hey, thank you so much, it feels like, okay, they think I'm okay. And if they think I'm okay, maybe I am okay. And so I think it became this cycle of I'm trying to meet everybody else's needs. And it came off as a very generous, caregiving type of person, which I feel like I am. But when I really dug in, the impetus of it was because I wanted to meet their needs so that they would somehow make me feel like I'm okay. And I have value.
To validate you, yeah.
It is. So that external validation became the real root driver of my people pleasing.
Okay. Now, are we judging that? Like, the title of the book is Do the Unright Thing. So what is unright then? What is do the unright thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's really this idea of, sports would be kind of this catchy thing because, really for me and for a lot of other people, we spent our whole life trying to do the right thing, right? What's the right thing to do? Okay, well, do good in school, date the right person, get good grades, go to college, get the right house, always about what's the right thing? What's the right thing? And our whole life becomes consumed with, okay, well, what's the right thing to do? Every decision point, well, what's the right thing? What's the right thing? And I think the motivation is pure. But what happens is we're allowing the external world to kind of define what the right thing is for us. Okay, well, what's the right thing that I should do? Well, let's see. Let me go ask everybody. Let me research it. Let me look at the statistics. Okay, well, I was good at math as a kid in my example, so I should study math. So I should go to college to do math. Okay, I talked to my advisor. What should I do? You should be an actuary. Okay, I became an actuary. Just kind of constantly doing the right thing, and it can create this good life. But ultimately what happens is it takes away, like, who am I really? Like, at my core, I'm like this creative. I've always been a creative kid, but I never did that because it wasn't the right thing to do. So this unright thing is really, it starts with the idea of maybe asking the question, what's the right thing to do? What do we really want to do? And ultimately what it means is changing who defines what the right thing is to do.
Okay.
Because it's the unright thing in the eyes of maybe the world, in the eyes of our family, in the eyes of our friends or our workplace or whatever. But it's the right thing for us because we've started defining what it is. And I think really this is a clarion call, a challenge to redefine who is defining what your right thing is. Is it somebody else, or is it you actually saying, what's the right thing for me to do? So it's the unright thing because it's in the eyes of everybody else, but it's the right thing in terms of our own life.
Okay. You're clearly somebody who drops a lot of bombs or whatever, and there's so many things to respond to. Okay, so this book is a manual. It's a nonfiction inspirational book. How old is this book? Like, sell this book. Like,
it's a memoir. Yeah, it's a memoir. It's my story, but they'll call it a memoir plus because it's my story. But the idea is it's written in a way that hopefully people can find themselves in it, and just draw some insight from my journey. So it started out as a book, as a research heavy book, as a self-help book. Like, that's what I was writing. I had 75,000 words written, like twice the size of what it is now, and it was really research heavy, like 70 citations, really about how do we become happier in our life. That's what it was. How do we escape the good life trap, where on paper our life is good, but inwardly we're miserable? And I had all this research, and I kept writing it, and I kept talking to the publisher, and I kept saying, it just doesn't feel right. It's not me. I'm not an expert. I don't want to be an expert. I don't want to be perceived as an expert. I don't want to speak as an expert. I don't want people approaching me as an expert. I'm just a guy who's trying to figure out how to be happier, And finally, I kind of beat them down, and they finally said, you know what? Let's just scrap it. Write a memoir. Just write your story. And so that was such a freeing moment. And so that happened late last year in 2023. And so this book was written in probably about 3 or 4 months, just as a memoir. Wow. That's all it was. And it released in January 2024. And it's, it's a pretty thin book. It's a pretty quick read. And part of that is because I had all these other stories that I had included in there. And the publisher's like, they're great stories, but it doesn't drive home the point. Let's just make sure you only include stuff that talks about you being a people pleaser and your path back to happiness by doing the unright thing. So long answer to a short question, but the book morphed a lot. And it just released in January of 2024, and it's just it's my memoir, my recollections, these stories from my youth. It's chronologically written from 10 years old on my grandma's couch, through the years, through high school, through college, and kind of always doing the right thing, and then finally, just recently in the last few years, realizing that I have a little bit more agency in my life than I realized, and started doing the unright thing, and the freedom that that's brought me.
Oh, yeah, boom. Okay. Now, just to use slightly different language and to kind of get your riff on this. Okay. So imagine a different way of putting this, right? When I hear the filter, I hear it through, right? Because this was introduced to me, was this idea that, okay, so first of all, you're a kid. And as a kid, you're not you, all kids. Bill Maher today, it's just like kids are morons. Okay, sure. Yeah, kids, they don't know, they have no way of, don't know what they're doing, don't know how to make decisions. Okay. But as you get older, you start making distinctions, right? And so one way another person said that I thought it made a lot of sense was that we're giving these narratives, right? So for example, for women, in her case, she's a woman. So it's like, you're told, okay, you get married, you have a kid, and you follow this script and this narrative, and then that's the path to the good life. And society validates you for, if you tick the boxes.
For doing it right.
In a way, for doing it right. But then, I mean, isn't, or to use a different phrase, it's kind of, don't you reach this point at a certain age where you stop giving a fuck? It's like, I have no more fucks to give. Like, I'm going to do the unright thing. It's kind of like saying, okay, I'm going to ignore the scripts. I'm going to ignore the narratives or whatever, and I'm going to write my own story. So isn't that, like, how much of this is you getting that agency, just you recognizing something that comes as a natural part of growing up.
That's really what it is. Ultimately, it's reaching that point where you say, actually, wait a second. This is my life. Wait, I can actually choose how I want to live my life. And I don't really care what other people think. That's exactly kind of what that is. That's that epiphanal moment. For some of us never have it. And that's maybe okay if we're happy. Some of us, we have it. Some of us, it actually causes, we need some kind of a breakdown, some kind of a low moment in our life to say, screw this, to do that. Now, all the stuff that you talked about, that's exactly what I talk about in terms of like defaults, expectations, shoulds. We have all this external pressure that's on us, right? We inherit all these norms, like exactly what you said. We're born into a family, and there's a certain set of beliefs, whether we're told directly or not. Hey, here's what we think. Here's what we believe. Here's how we act. That's kind of the norms. That's the default in our school, in our workplace. All those things that you said, those narratives that we receive, and they might even be well-intentioned. But we do them because that's what we're supposed to do. That's the right thing to do. And then all these people, as we get older, all these expectations are put on us, right? Hey, you've been in a romantic relationship. There's expectations. There's workplace expectations. There's teacher expectations. There's family expectations. And so we try to meet those expectations. And when we're a people pleaser, that's on steroids. And then all the shoulds. I always tell people, we're getting should on all the time, right? Hey, you know what you should do? You should do this. You know what I should do? I should do this. And we're should. And I think all of this external pressure is all of that stuff that we're trying to conform, or, depending on our personality, we're trying to conform. And then one day it just kind of hits. Either we have this realization that, what am I doing? This isn't even my life. It's a good life, but it's not mine. Or, we go through deep anxiety, or there's something that happens that triggers us to get to that point, that exactly what you're talking about. Like, oh my God, this is my life. What am I doing? And then we start rebuilding it based on our own terms. But, my hope is that, we can help people start realizing that sooner than that breakdown point. Right.
You'll see Steve Fredlund, right? Is Fredlund? Where's the stress in your last name? How do I say it?
Fredlund.
Fredlund. Okay.
But you got it.
Okay. So you'll see that the conversation just flies by, and your energy is like full on. I love it. Memoir of a people pleaser, do the unright thing. You've started the conversation with a bang. I'm really excited to see what the next photo is. I haven't looked at the photos, right?
That's fun. That's super fun.
I'm reminding it with you. Okay, so let's see what you sent me.
And just as you do that, I'll quick say, my energy most of my life has not been like this high. Like, this is how I was as a kid, and now it's just kind of coming back as an adult. But for 25 years,
welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you. My wife says old Steve, new Steve, but I've spent like 25 years as a corporate actuary, and I just kind of was, just kind of regular routine. But this is who I am, and so it feels good to kind of be able to express that.
So the photo is absolutely fantastic. So it's you standing on stage. You're wearing a black sort of t-shirt with a blue blazer jacket on it. You're looking at the audience. Behind you is a slide and it might say inspire. All I see is inspire. Yeah. And it's like you're obviously giving a presentation. Maybe it's a TED Talk. It has that kind of feel. You have a mic on your lapel. You're looking at the audience. You're mid-word, so your mouth is open and the energy is just like radiating. Yeah. What is this?
That's the new me. That's kind of the repackaged, re-engineered me. Now I'm doing a lot of professional speaking. I do a lot of keynote speaking. That talk was from an event called Cause Camp. Bunch of nonprofit leaders that gathered in Sandusky, Ohio. And so that was just my presentation from there. And I love that picture just because it does kind of represent the energy that I'm trying to bring to the room. So that was a keynote talk, speaking to a bunch of nonprofit leaders about how can we live the safari way, which is kind of my shtick. I'm known now as the safari dude. I've been on a number of African safaris. And so I talk to people through the lens of an African safari. Like, life is this great adventure. Life is a safari. Nonprofit leadership is a safari. And so I talk through that lens. And that's a lot of what I do now. So that picture represents, I guess, sort of this new evolution of Steve.
Okay. Life is a safari. You're talking to leaders or whatever from the NGO space.
Yep.
I have a bit of experience in the NGO kind of world. You're in Ohio. You're giving a kind of inspirational talk, or what was the what were the three things you wanted people to remember when they left?
Yeah, really. So it is an inspirational talk. The part that you see is from called Inspire Next. That was the name of the segments that they were having us speak about. Yeah, it's really about. I guess the three pieces are: number one, life itself is an epic adventure. Not just the trips that we go on, not just the big moments, but life itself is an epic adventure.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I know, right? It's a good fit, right? and then the second piece is recognizing that the same things that make an African safari truly amazing are the same things that we can apply in our own life to make that amazing. In our life, our work, our leadership. I have the big five, that I talk about, but basically those are the two big things. And so then I just talk about, well, what are those things that make an African safari amazing, and how do we apply those to our life? And the reality is, when we do that, we have greater success in all areas of our life. We have greater happiness, all of those pieces. So that's really the crux of the talk.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, like when you're writing a movie screenplay, when you're writing a book, when you're writing a short story, typically how it works is one day, person X was living their lives. It was following a path, and then something happened. And all of a sudden, something happened. So what happened that suddenly you decided to veer off in this direction to inspire people?
Yeah, I mean, I had a massive anxiety attack, and I had never experienced that in my life at all. What happened is, for about 10 years, I was like questioning myself, because I had this really good life on paper. I had a good job, great company, wonderful marriage, 3 healthy kids, all of this stuff that, everybody would look at and say, wow, he's crushing life. But inwardly, I was so unhappy. And so for 10 years, I just kept trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? So I'd keep trying new things. I went back to school, got my MBA. I quit my job, went to work for a nonprofit. I started my own nonprofit. I started 4 different podcasts. I started a poker training site. Oh. I mean, I started, doing, because I was chasing that thing that would make me happy, And so I just kept doing that. And everybody's like, oh, wow, look at the successes, blah, blah, blah. But it was inwardly, I was just busier and I was more miserable. And so for 10 years, I was doing that, just chasing it. And my wife was like, what happened to old Steve? You're so unhappy. And I'm like, I know, I just got to figure out what I'm doing wrong and all that kind of stuff. And then it kind of came to a head in late 2018. I was sitting in my car outside my office building. It was 5 a.m, because I always went in super early, and I couldn't go in. I was paralyzed. I was sweating. I was crying. I wrote a note to my family to be in case I died. I mean, I didn't know what was going on. I'd never experienced this. I couldn't move. Oh, wow. And I was always kind of anxiety, is it real? I know it sounds terrible, but I was always kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Let's go. That's Minnesota work ethic, and I just couldn't. And so that was the moment when then I realized I need to go see professional help and figure out what's going on here actually. And that's the moment. And then that led to the therapist kind of asking me the question that changed everything, which I write about in the book, which is just, what kind of life do you actually want? Because my whole life was all around trying to meet everybody's expectations. But that was the moment that then led me on this journey of rediscovery.
Okay, Steve, I'm going to downshift a little bit in the sense of, so in 2009, after the financial crisis, I had my first panic attack. And, and how it manifested in me, and it happens, a first full-on proper panic attack. It's that feeling of something bad is going to happen. I might die, and I kind of, I kind of checked into the hospital, and, they monitored me for a while. And since then I've been dealing with anxiety. So that's more than 10 years. No, look,
that's hard.
Yeah. So basically when you say that, I connect with it quite well. And then the question is, I had a dear friend also asked me, well, but what do you want? And I couldn't answer. I can't answer, you know? And so recently I wrote down, because journaling is an important part of self-help or whatever. I wrote down 5 pages of what I want. Pie in the sky stuff.
Yeah.
So so I connect with you as a person, I'm looking at you right now. I know what that feels like. And it's it's debilitating, and it can be, it's very scary, and you were able through therapy to have that person change your point of view to kind of tackle a whole new kind of, and that was waiting there the whole time. It was just waiting for you to discover it.
Yeah.
So imagine there's a question in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you nailed it, and you had this very similar experience. And I think, the question she asked, I mean, at half hour into our first session, I was just sharing why I was there, and she just said exactly that question. So what kind of life experience do you actually want to have? And I was kind of frustrated at first because I was like, aren't you listening to me? Like, I want to be happier. Like, don't you get it? And she nailed it. She just understood that my whole life, or at least the last 40 years or whatever, was all living based on what I was supposed to do, the expectations of others, the defaults, all that kind of stuff, what I was supposed to be doing. And she kind of nailed it. And then, she said, well, if you strip away all the stuff that you're supposed to do, and it's just you, what kind of like life experience do you want to have? Not even what do you want to do, but what kind of experiences, what kind of posture do you want to have to the world? What kind of feelings do you want to feel? And I like you, I just couldn't answer it. I just stared at her and said, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Right.
And so that was really the piece that dropped, that started me on that journey, like you, of saying, well, what do I actually want? And so through therapy and through that, I just started discovering what kind of emotions I want to have, what kind of people I want to be around, all of those pieces. And that's when it started morphing into like this African safari sort of thing. Like, what I realized is I want to live my life like it is an epic adventure. Because I'd been going on these African safaris during that same 10 years. I was going on these safaris, and those were amazing.
Oh, wow.
And I realized, so I had that going on. That was amazing. And then the rest of my life was miserable. And I was like, what is happening? And what I realized is on those African experiences, there's certain things that I was doing that was bringing me so much life that I wasn't doing in my regular life. And so that was kind of where I landed. And I realized I want to laugh more. I want to be creative. I want to do all these things that were there in my youth that got dampened by all the shoulds that I decided to follow.
Did you read a book called Repacking Your Bags?
No.
Have you read that? Sound familiar? No. I don't remember. Something Leader and Shapiro or something. Anyway, so the Repacking Your Bags essentially is about trying to define. Okay, so in the work that I've done in leadership consulting and all this stuff, one of the many things that or sources that we used was this book called Repacking Your Bags, which is the motif at the beginning of the book is basically the guy going to Africa with some Maasai, and having that person ask him basically the question of, what do you want to do and how do you understand your life? So it's interesting that that experience manifested for you so similarly in a way of going to Africa and going on these safaris. Now, on safari, aren't you supposed to be quite quiet and subdued?
Depending on what you're doing, right? I mean, yeah, a lot of the time you are.
Okay.
A lot of the time, but there's these, you have those moments where, you're hoping a black rhino comes out of the bush, or, I've had close encounters with mountain gorillas and all these things, and it's quiet. But then there's other times where, you're driving in the Jeep with the people and you're just, you're laughing about what happened, and you're watching a cheetah run at full speed and you're high-fiving, and, it's kind of both. It's kind of both and, but there's this combination of, those quiet moments you're like, oh, anticipation, what's going to happen, these celebratory moments when something really cool happens, and just, these amazing moments where you're standing on the edge of the Ngorongoro crater, just not saying anything, just taking in this amazing view. So it's all of these different emotions, but I think the common thread is that you're just, at least for me, you're so fully present in that moment.
Right.
Like nothing else mattered. You're not checking your phone. You're not worrying about the next responsibility. You're just there with the people, living that experience. And it's just, that's it.
Very much. Sorry, I almost interrupted you.
Go ahead.
Try to.
I love it. I love
very
it.
much like being on stage from someone who knows. When
100%.
you're on stage, if you're not present, you're bombing. You're dying.
100%.
So you're super present.
And I think that's what I've been looking for in my life. I think that sort of piece, because I've always had an excuse to always be, all over here, a million responsibilities, a million things. And so, the opportunity, even like this, I have a meeting later after this or whatever, but like I'm here. I'm not thinking about 12 other things. And I think I think that's where I come fully alive. And you mentioned sort of my energy.
Yeah.
This isn't my energy when I'm in the middle of 12 different things or whatever in the corporate world or whatever, because it's blah, 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 blah. But for some reason that for me, that triggers this energy when I can really be focused on what the moment.
Well, you're definitely present in the
He's
photograph.
Like, too much. You're too much.
No. Exactly the amount.
Bring it down.
Perfect amount. No, he loves it. He totally loves it. I'm just saying that as you're saying this, there's this photo of you looking at the audience. You can't see the audience.
Yeah.
All you can see is the stage that's behind you, which is like dark, and there's the slide, and your hands are out in this action pose, and you're like, people, I'm here. Let's get inspired. I love it.
Yeah. It's so much fun, I think. And one of the things, what I've learned is, not to go on too much of a tangent, so you can cut me off if you want, but...
Tangent away.
Okay, well...
This whole thing's a tangent. It's all great.
In the speaking industry, it feels like there's generally, there's two categories of speakers. There's those who speak because they love to talk, and they always have something to say. And then there's the speakers, and I think I fall in the second camp, where it's like, we have a lot to say, we have a lot of experiences, a lot of insights, but we're not just going to talk. We're not going to force people to listen to us. You know what I mean? We're the kind of people, we're introverts. I'm an introvert, where if we're at a dinner party, I might not say a word the whole time. I might be perfectly content, but if everybody else is talking, I'm not going to jump in and say, I got a story, whatever. But there's this category of people, and I'm one of them, where I need permission to speak. And I think that's why I love speaking on stage. It's why I love doing podcasts, because I've got a lot to say. I've got a lot of experiences. It's probably why I wrote a book. But I'm not going to force myself in. So, but when somebody says, hey, I'd like to talk to you about your experiences or what you bring to the table, I'm like, yeah, let's go. You've given me, through this, you've given me permission to share my stories. Or when somebody says, hey, we'd like to have you come on and do a keynote talk, they've given me permission to now share my story. And I think I need that. And so I become fully alive in that, because I feel like I don't have this energy when I'm like in a group of people and I feel like I'm interrupting and telling a story, and I feel like I'm making them listen to me, because I'm very apologetic then. I'm like, I'm sorry this is taking so long. I'm sorry this is taking so long. Because I feel like, do they really want me to share? Whereas somebody says, we want you to share, then I'm like, okay, now I feel like I can be fully confident in what I have to say.
Right. It's that young people pleaser. Now, because of that, we need to move on to the next photo, because this thing is just trucking along.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see what you've got in store. Boom! I hope people go on the website. I hope people go on YouTube. I hope people check out the photos, because this is great. Okay, I think you're making a selfie, or somebody's right in your face, making a photo of your face. You've got, I guess it could be like something like a headband. Maybe it's like a GoPro headband or something.
Camera.
Right. But anyway, so you're looking right close. Your face and body, you're wearing a gray t-shirt, take up just about half or more than half of the photo frame. Behind you, and this is possibly, your expression is absolutely explosively happy. Behind you is this incredible bamboo forest and a silverback gorilla sitting on its haunches, chopping away at it could be a shoot or something of bamboo or something.
Yeah.
Must be about like 20 feet, 30 feet away from you. Massive animal that could totally cause some serious damage, but it's just like, doesn't care about you too much. Is this all CGI, or were you actually there? That was legit. You. That was there.
That is legit. That's the volcanic rainforest of northern Rwanda. That is 2015 when we went up to see the mountain gorillas, and that was the first moment that was the first gorilla that we saw. We hike for like 2-3 hours, and it's exhausting. And we finally found this family of gorillas that we were looking for, and that was the first one that we saw. And so that was somebody taking a picture of me, and I was like, no way, no way. And then it just got crazier from there. But that was the first moment that we encountered the Agashia family of mountain gorillas.
That's incredible. Okay, and you say it got crazier from there?
Yeah.
That's already pretty crazy.
It
What
was
do you
pretty
mean?
crazy until, I mean, I could tell you hours and hours of stories. But yeah, once we kind of got into the family, there's 12 members of the family, and we watched these two young gorillas were playing, and they're like climbing this bamboo tree, super flexible. They'd use their weight to bring the top of the tree all the way down to the ground,
Uh-huh.
and they'd hold on to the top of the tree when they jump up, still holding the top of the tree.
Ah, of course.
And when it would snap straight like a pole vaulter, and when they got to the top, they'd release and they go somersaulting up through the air. They roll down, and once in a while they rolled too close to us, and the mama would come over and got really close to us. And then, I mean, the big thing was at one point, the silverback gorilla touched me on the back, came up behind me,
oh, wow.
and started grunting, and I'm just frozen because I'm trying to remember. They teach you in training, what if this happens? It came right around front of me. It was like 2 feet in front of me, just like squared me up, and it was so intense and amazing and all of those things, and nothing happened. I just wanted to make sure that, I knew that this was their turf, this was his family, and but just those moments, and I caught some of that on a GoPro camera, and it was just but it was so. I tell everybody it was the greatest hour of my life, and no offense to my wife and kids, but it was. I mean, from a pure hour perspective, that's what you get. You get 1 hour with them from when you first see them. That's the license, and so
okay,
it was epic. I mean, it was just one of those surreal moments of the gorillas, the team members, the view over northern Rwanda, the rainforest. It was just a amazing moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things for somebody listening, like, and also for me, right? Like when I think safari, for example, usually that's in a Jeep. Usually there's some kind of mechanical or some kind of distance between yourself and the animals and everything. But here you hiked in. And that's the thing, is the proximity, is that you're standing there and behind you is this very large, like that's all muscle primate. Like
they walk past bamboo trees and just snap them off. I mean, they're massive creatures. Yeah.
Okay. So how do we turn this, other than the fact that it's like super inspiring and maybe a listener will be like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But how do we turn, like, what's the teachable moment here?
Yeah, the big thing, and that's why I use this story in my talks, is because exactly what you said. The first 3 trips to Africa we went on, we did the traditional safari stuff, and it was amazing, right? It's Jeeps, it's the Serengeti, it's giraffes, lions, zebra, all that kind of stuff. And then when we were preparing for the 4th trip, the guide said, so what kind of African safari experience do you want to have? And it was just like that question that the therapist asked me, what kind of experience do you want to have? And we were like, well, what are you talking about? The African safari kind of experience. I mean, Jeeps, whatever. And they were like, you know what? There are way more choices beyond the default than most people realize that you can choose from. And the teachable moment is, there's the default way to live. There's a default sort of experience, and it can be a good experience, just like an African safari. That's great. Those are great experiences. But unless we ask the question, unless we're asked the question, we don't realize that there are choices beyond the default in our life. We don't have to live life by default, by what we've inherited, by the norms, by all of those things. There's more options, and we actually get to choose. And so the teachable moment was when I started asking him, well, what other options are there? All we've done is these other Jeep things, and they've all been great. He's like, well, you can go, like you mentioned, the Maasai. You can go to the Maasai Mara. You can take hot air balloon rides over herds of elephants and follow them. You can take nighttime boat rides looking for Nile crocodiles. You could go bungee jumping in Victoria Falls. You could go see the mountain gorillas in northern Rwanda. And so just having him kind of open our eyes to the fact that, an African safari isn't just an African safari. There's all these other options. Because, you don't think of mountain gorillas when you think of safari. You think of acacia trees and landscapes. And so the teachable moment is, a lot of times there are different ways that we can live our life beyond what we just think of, beyond what we've seen, beyond the people that we know, and the exploring that and trying to understand that and realizing we can actually choose. We can choose the kind of experience we want to have on African safari or on life. To me, that's the big teachable moment out of there.
Okay. Well, okay. So for the person who can't get away, like,
sure,
because there's the exoticism of taking a flight and, having that experience, right? But for the person who's like, I don't know, who lives in Montreal, she's a nutritionist, she has to raise 2 kids, wakes up every day, has to put food on the table, has to deal with life, or you know what I mean? Or in my case, like I've been struggling to with because of the pandemic and all this stuff to find work and everything. Like, is your approach more like a coach, or is your approach more like an inspirational speaker where I go like, oh,
yeah,
maybe I can try that. So what's
Yep.
the
No, I get it. I love it. The overarching piece is approaching every day like it's an epic adventure. The safari is just I've had the great experiences. I feel very blessed to be able to do those things. And it was part of doing humanitarian work and all this stuff. But like
oh
that's
wow.
just, those are stories. I mean, it's a story, but it's a picture of, I haven't been on one for quite a few years, but I've shared this with other people through coaching, through my friendships, through speaking. And the idea isn't that, oh, we all get to go on an African safari. And if we don't, we can't have this sort of amazing life. The idea is that everyday life, waking up and seeing that life is an epic adventure. How do we want to approach it? And it's an invitation for us to realize that we have more agency than we realize. And so, yeah, the mom of two, single mom, whatever, maybe she's not going to go to Africa, that kind of thing. But what can you do? What kind of experience do you want to have in the midst of that? What kind of parent do you want to be? What kind of relationships do you want to have? Who do you want to surround yourself with? Who are the right peeps in the Jeep, as I say? Sort of having being intentional, but starting with, in the midst of the life that I have now, what kind of experience do I want to have? Do I want to have more laughter? Do I want to have more seriousness? Do I want to have more rest? Do I want to have more peace? Do I want to have more chaos? Do I want to have, more group friendships? Do I want to have more single friendships? Do I want to have less friends? Do I want to spend more time with my family, less time with my family? Like, being honest about what is the experience you want to have. So it's not about all this crazy things. The safari just kind of paints a fun picture for that. But it's ultimately, what kind of life do I actually want to have in the midst of my capability, in the midst of my resources? It doesn't have to be exotic. And then it's about being intentional, about saying, okay, well, if I want to have more laughter in my life, who are the right peeps in my Jeep? Am I surrounded by people that make me laugh? Or am I surrounded by people that are negative Nellies and whatever? And realizing that we can actually control the peeps in our Jeep. We don't have to give people the voice that we're giving them now. And we can invite people in. And I think it's an invitation to be intentional about pursuing the life you actually want. It's not really an invitation to having to be, go on exotic safari adventures. But I think it paints this picture. And I think what helps people is to wake up in the morning and realize that I can live life the safari way in the midst of what I have here today.
Right.
People have little reminders like, okay, life's an adventure. And so rather than, kind of realizing, living, a lot of us live life like between the adventures, like we're waiting for the next day off, we're waiting for the next client, we're waiting for the next kids party. And the rest of life is just kind of, we're punching a clock, doing our thing. Yeah, we have responsibilities, but the invitation is to say, you know what, that itself is the adventure. Helen Keller said, life is either an epic adventure or it's nothing at all. And so that's the invitation, is to start to just change our perspective. So to answer your question, I mean, it's kind of coaching, it's more inspirational, but it's just more of an invitation to say, what if we woke up every day and realized that this is another day that we get to have on this life safari? And I know that sounds cliche, and I probably would have laughed at myself 20 years ago, motivational speaker or something. But it's true, and it's changing the lives of people, just that tweak in our perspective.
So somebody's listening to this. I'm talking to you. I'm open, listeners open. What is step one?
Yeah, step one of this is really to figure out what kind of experience do you actually want to have. And maybe it's through a therapist, maybe it's just through a friend, maybe it's just somebody you trust that can ask you those kind of questions. But find that person that can actually kind of challenge you. What kind of experience do you actually want to have? And again, it's not about, I want to travel the world, I want to get a promotion. It's not even what you do. It's the heart kind of experience. When so part of that is, the hardest part is to define what that is, because we have all of these. We talked about the defaults, the expectations, the shoulds. What am I supposed to want? And I think the hard part is to strip all of that away, to have somebody ask the question and say, is that really what you want? Or is that just what you're supposed to want? And just being gut level honest with the kind of life experience that you want to have. It's hard, but once you figure that out, now you can start to build on it. And I say the story, if you don't have that, it's so hard to do the rest of it. It's so hard to find freedom. It's so hard to find adventure, because it's like Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And I think so many of us live our life in that way, that we don't really know what kind of life experience we want, or what kind of experience we want in leadership or in our job, or as a coach, or whatever that your business is. We don't really know what we want, and so we just take whatever road is there.
Right.
Sometimes it works out fine. Sometimes we end up in our car when we're 48 years old having an anxiety attack, unable to go inside, And so I think that's the step one is clarifying what kind of experience do you want to have. And it's harder than it sounds, but boy, there's freedom that comes with that. That's step one.
Got it. Yes, that makes perfect sense. To have a vision of where, basically have a vision of what you're aiming for, and write it down. Or what how would you suggest a person makes it concrete, as rather than it just be like a brain fart that they forget within a week?
Yeah, I mean, and part of it could be vision, could be things that you actually want to accomplish. Part of it's just the kind of life that you want to live. And so I would say anything you can do to put reminders around yourself. I know I've got all my little reminders. I got a little zebra here, which is sort of corny, but it's like I see it every day. Life is a safari. Let's go. And so whatever it takes to remind you. Maybe some people, when they wake up in the morning before they get out of bed, I don't do this. I wish I had the discipline, but before they get out of bed, they have a little mantra, or they have 3 things they do, or a question they ask themselves. Or just say, what before you get out of bed, before you get started, before you go shower, before you make coffee, before you have your first meeting, center yourself on whatever that is. I want to be a person that laughs more. I mean, just say that.
Right.
I'm going to look for opportunities to laugh, or I'm going to look for opportunities to be serious, and just somehow remind yourself. But then, man, find somebody in your life that can hold you accountable if you're that kind of a person. Have somebody that's going to text you every day and just say, did you laugh today? Or, whatever it might be. And find that community of people that's going to support you and encourage you according to the experience you want to have. And this doesn't have to be, you don't have to be super popular. You don't have to have this huge friendship network. I don't have many friends. I'm like one of those guys that people assume you have friends. I'm like, I don't really have many close friends at all. Everybody's kind of looking for a friend, but just find
you have your people.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of find your people little by little. And I've had to change out a lot of my people as I've rediscovered this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, those aren't really my people anymore. I love them. They're good people. It's not about if they're good peeps or bad peeps. It's about if they're the right peeps in your Jeep. And I think once you define what kind of experience you want to have, now you define, well, who are the people that are going to support me, encourage me according to that experience. And when you start surround yourself with people, set reminders, set a timer on your phone. I don't know, that has a label on it that says laugh. And if you need to go watch a cat video. I mean, I don't know, whatever it is that gets you going. And so there's intentionality around this, but it starts with a clear vision of what it is that you're looking for.
Love it. So as you're saying this, I'm looking at the photo of you, just eyes so wide and open, mouth agape, so alive with this massive gorilla behind you. And with that, we're going to go on to your last photo.
All right.
Okay, this is a photo of peeps in a Jeep. Okay, so it's a tight, close shot of 2 or 5 people. Maybe it's your family. I assume that's you with the red cap.
Yep.
Yeah, glasses on top of the cap. You're inside a closed Jeep. Behind, like the background behind is just like blurred jungle. It's full on. The Jeep is this muted tones. You're all it's an open Jeep, so you're all in the open air. Kind of smiling. Some young guy is like looking at you a little bit, also smiling. I don't know if you made a joke or something funny happened, but peeps in a Jeep.
That's it.
Take it away.
Yeah, so that was from one of our trips to Africa, and it's a picture I just love because I remember those moments of just where it was just pure bliss. And I'll say this, the last picture with the gorilla, this one with the gorilla, was happening on safari, and those were amazing experiences. But this is just as context, like this was happening during the same time the rest of my life was just miserable. And so what I love about these is, for me and personally, it's such a contrast to saying, how do I get this in my life? But yeah, we were just on a Jeep. We were on safari. I believe we were in the Serengeti at the time, and just amazing moment after amazing moment, where you're just seeing these cool things happen. But it really wasn't even the stuff that was happening. It was that bond that we felt, that those shared experiences that we felt. And now what this picture has come to mean, at the time it was like, oh, fun memory. Now what this has come to mean is like, that's a vision for what I want in my life. I want to be going through the safari of my life, the adventure of my life, the ups, downs, highs, lows, the good stuff, the bad stuff as we get older. I mean, I just had an email yesterday from a buddy who's dying. I mean, we go through all of this terrible stuff, good stuff, terrible stuff. It's, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know. You mentioned, the 2009 recession. We got the global pandemic and the COVID, how that affected your business. It's all this stuff. But for me, it's like, it's a reminder, like, this is what I want. I want the peeps in my Jeep that when good stuff happens, we are celebrating together. If something good happens to me, they are excited about me. They're not jealous. They don't have their own hidden agenda. When something good happens to them, I'm excited for them. And then when something bad happens, we're there for each other, in an honest, vulnerable, transparent way. And so that picture turned from, oh, that was so great, that was such a fun experience in Africa, to now it's just, no, this is what I want in life. I want those kind of people where we look at each other with just pure joy, pure excitement, pure hope for each other. We're there for each other. One of the gals that I just, that was in that picture, I just Zoomed with her the other day. I haven't talked to her for quite a while. And just, I want that. And it's not 50 people. I mean, it's like 4 other people, and so that's what the picture has come to mean to me. And that's why to me, it's one of the 4 pictures I chose for you.
It's a beautiful symbol, if we're talking about by analogy, right? So I wish I could remember the quote from that book, right? From Repacking Your Bags. So he's like I think it's something to the effect of, to have happiness, you do what you love with the people you love and doing the right things on purpose. Right, I've totally butchered the quote, or the motto. So in a way,
Well, no, I'm writing it down because I'm so intrigued. Like, this sounds like parallel paths.
It's really, it's great. And so in a sense, it's kind of like, if that's the kind of the idea in the ether, right? Yeah. And that life is an adventure, and that you have your close ones in the Jeep with you, and your shared experience, having these great moments, and by choice, right? So it's a very powerful message and an invitation, right? As to guide people. So, okay, that's all fine and good. Now, so here comes the question. Here it comes. So the question is, describe a time when your vision, motto, prescription had an impact for somebody that really made you go like, oh, wow, that I changed somebody's life. Yeah. Like, has that happened?
It's happening every time I speak now, which is really overwhelming and exciting. And I feel a great responsibility there too. But no, I mean, I speak to certain groups, like where people openly come up and say, oh my gosh, this is what I felt for so long. And you put words to it now. And they're crying and they're telling me their story and that kind of thing. And then occasionally, like, I'll speak to like blue collar workers kind of thing, where they're more gruff and they're not going to show their emotion. And I always have 1 or 2 people come up, after they find me, not right after, they come later, and they're crying, and they're just like, they just say thank you. They can't say anything else. I don't know which part of it actually resonated with them, but there's that. And that's a really powerful thing. And I think all this is doing, I don't think for some people, they'll never resonate with this because they haven't walked through this. But for people that have, it's giving them words to what they've experienced, and it's giving them hope, I think, because now they can start to see how they can do some things. So yeah, it's I see that a lot now, and then I get email follow-ups all the time, about different parts of it, and some of it's, I laugh because part of it's fun, some of it's funny. I spoke to a group of school nurses in West Virginia, and it was really powerful. And one of the focuses was doing the unright thing, like just challenging them, because they're nurses, caregivers, they're always doing the right thing. They're always putting everybody else first. And I just invited them to find that one thing that they've always wanted to do, that they've never done, or that they know they would love to do, and just do it. Put a date in the calendar, get it done. Doesn't have to be big. And so it was this beautiful moment. And then I get an email about a week later from one of the school nurses, and there's no context at all. I didn't even know she was one of the school nurses. I didn't recognize the email or anything. And she just says,
I love it.
She says, I got my nose pierced. That's all it said. And I'm like, nice. I respond back. I'm like, okay, that's great, but can you provide a little more context? And she said she was at the talk, and she was in her 50s, and she doesn't know why, but she'd always wanted to have her nose pierced. She doesn't really know why, but she's still afraid of what her parents would think. And,
oh, well, yep.
And after the talk, and I get it, but after the talk, she went and she got it pierced. And she said, I got a piercing.
Right.
I just love it. I just love it. My parents are fine, and my kids and my grandkids make fun of me, but she just feels so empowered. And it's because it's not about the thing you do. It's about the empowerment that you feel from actually living the kind of life that you want. And so those kind of things, another guy started drum lessons, and those kind of things just
Nice.
make me feel like, okay, I'm giving them permission to live. They needed somebody to tell them it's okay to do what you want to do, even if it's not a big thing. And that's a very, I feel the weight of that, the enormity of that in a positive way.
There's something almost pejorative about the phrase people pleaser. Because the people who use it, people like Conan O'Brien,
Sure.
who I adore.
Yeah.
It's used in a way like it's a bad thing. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, if only that wasn't me. But on the other hand, maybe that's part of your success. So in a sense, like when you're giving this really inspirational talks, and then a week later, somebody comes back to you and says, I got that tattoo, I got that nose piercing, I got that, whatever it was. And that brings you that validation. So is that not, in a sense, people pleasing like a mass of strangers?
Yeah.
So you've taken it up a notch.
I think it's serving that same kind of purpose. I think it comes down to the motivation of it. I think when I was really living like the people pleaser thing, I would do things that I didn't want to do because I knew that was the right thing to do to help them, or I was just wanted to meet their needs. I wanted to make them happy, whether it's a family member, friend, or just a complete stranger. So I think that you're right in that both are accomplishing the same things. Like I'm serving, I'm doing things on behalf of other people to help them make their life better. But it's the motivation is different. The motivation is, I feel like I've got something to say that's really going to help people, but it's not about just meeting their need. They haven't come to me and say, I've got a need. I'm like, okay, I've got this message that I think is going to help change their life. And so the motivation is trying to change the fabric of people's lives versus just transactionally doing something so that they like me. Because I realize now that not everybody's going to like you. So my goal when I go speak isn't to like have everybody like me. I mean, of course you want that. Of course, you want everybody to like you, everybody to find you amazing, that kind of thing. But now I'm really honest with the event planner, and it's not about because I can make everybody like me by just telling jokes for an hour. I mean, who doesn't like that? So I tell the event planner, my goal is not to make everybody like me. My goal is to find those people that really need to hear this. The people that are starting to disengage from their work, they're starting to question themselves, or lacking confidence, or feeling, they're not productive anymore because they're just like they've kind of checked out. And to try to speak to them in a way that's going to help them re-engage in their world. And so, and so when people come back to me and say those things, I feel like I'm super grateful for that. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the change because I feel like they're seeing the same kind of change that I'm seeing, but I don't feel that same sort of like cookie or getting a buzz or taking a shot or something. I don't feel that same sort of like, oh, I guess I'm okay. I'm just like, oh, I love that it resonated with them. I love that what I'm seeing in my life, the ability to wake up and see the world as a safari and lean into the adventure. And I love that they're also seeing that. So you're right in the context of it's probably accomplishing the same thing, but I think the motivations and my reaction is very different.
Absolutely. And it's like it's all in the agency, it's all in the motivation, it's all in the mission, because really, it's like the podcast, right? That's what's interesting is that it's a dinky podcast. Who knows who listens to it? But every once in a while, somebody pipes up and says, hey, that actually moved the needle a little bit. That actually had an impact. And that's kind of why I do it.
I love it. And I think, just by way of encouragement for what you're doing too. I mean, I've been there too, but like invariably, if you stop the podcast, you have all these people say, oh, shoot, I miss your podcast. But they never respond on a regular basis. They just don't. They don't. And then there's the reality of, probably 1 out of 50 people that are impacted will actually respond.
Right.
I mean, so I think just by way of encouragement, I've been there, and I know sometimes it's like, and I'm not saying you feel this way, but sometimes it's like, is this matter? Is this whatever? Because it takes work, it takes money, but you just know that, I can just tell by the way you interview that, the people that you have on and the way that you express yourself is making a difference to everybody. And so just encourage you to keep on going.
Look at you. You're such a great motivational speaker.
Well,
I love it.
I wouldn't have said that 10 years ago just because I feel like, ooh, should I say this? Should I not?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it is. And I think because I'm a speaker too, and I know sometimes you're like, you don't get any feedback. You're like, I think it went really well. The event planner's happy, but nobody said anything.
Sure.
But then once in a while, they'll email and say, oh, no, like, okay, it did matter. And so
Yeah.
it can be a lonely place sometimes because you feel like you're speaking in dead air. But you just trust that people are getting impacted there.
Well, and okay, so I am doing it, so we use different words, right? So we all have like what's signified, and we're just using different signifiers, right? So one of the signifiers you're using is Safari. Signifier you're using is peeps in a Jeep. Different ways of talking about the same thing. Me, it's like we all have a bucket of seconds. We don't know how many. How do we make all of them count, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So you've shared your book. Again, what's the title of the book?
It's called Do the Unright Thing, Memoir of a People Pleaser.
Yes. Link in the show notes. There's a photo of you being an amazing speaker on stage, arms wide. Then there's an even better photo of you with a freaking real live huge gorilla behind you. And then there's like peeps in the Jeep, which I'm looking at now. So look, you've got the last minute or two. Knock it out of the park.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, how to close up something like this is a great conversation. I'd say it's just an invitation. Like I'd really try not to should on people. So if you're listening to this, I'm not shoulding on you. I'm not telling you what you should do, right? You're not going to be covered in should. This is just an invitation. And I think, like you said, you have the way that you describe it, there's a bucket of seconds. How do you want to spend those seconds? I talk about Safari. It's kind of like finding that thing that resonates with you. So I would just encourage the listener, what is that message that resonates with you on how you can live life on your terms and those things? And I would say, just it's the way I wrap up my talks, kind of like what you talked about. When you're on an African safari, they have a closing time. Every park you go to, there's a closing time. And if you're in the park at closing time, you will get fined. You might get arrested. Like, it's no joke.
Right.
And I think in our lives, as far as I know, we have one shot at this. I mean, I'd like it to be more. I don't know. But we all have a closing time, right? We don't know if it's tomorrow. We don't know if it's 50 years from now. But we have a closing time. So the question is, how do we want to live our lives in the time that we have left? How do we want to spend that bucket of seconds? And it's an invitation to start viewing life like it's an epic adventure. It might not even change anything about what you do. You might still be at home with the kids. You might still have a job. All of those things might stay the same, but you can change your perspective on things. You can start becoming happier just by starting to realize, man, I am on this epic adventure and I have so many days left on safari. And just an invitation to start grabbing each day on saying this is my day, and I want to make the most of it, and I want to choose and be empowered to choose how I perceive that day and who I spend the day with.
Well done. That's wicked. Thank you. That's great.
Thank you, sir. You're so easy to chat with, man. You should be a podcaster.
Thanks, man.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.